Give credit where credit is due. How many times have we heard this phrase throughout our lives? And what does it really mean? To say to give credit where it's due means to acknowledge someone's efforts and contributions to a certain project, idea, etc. to the person who rightfully deserves it. But sometimes in life, the credit does not always go to the right person, and others take the credit instead, leaving the person feeling overlooked and hurt as well. The book that I'm going to be reviewing today teaches this lesson to the reader. The book that I'm going to be reviewing today is called It's Not Fair. It was written by Deborah Halsig and illustrated by Tom Lee. This book is from the Sesame Street Start to Read book series. The story begins on a hot day on Sesame Street, and Ernie and Bert are sitting on the stoop of their apartment building, 123 Sesame Street. Ernie gets an idea to beat the heat. Why don't they make lemonade and sell it? Bert agrees with this idea and asks Ernie to go to the store to buy the lemons that they will need to make the lemonade. Ernie goes off to the store. Along the way, he meets up with Big Bird and Grover and tells them that he and Bert will be running a lemonade stand and to stop by later. They agree to do so. When Ernie arrives at Mr. McIntosh's fruit and vegetable stand, he sees lemons in big piles, but he also sees piles of oranges as well. Taken by how delicious they looked, Ernie buys the oranges instead of the lemons that Bert asked him to buy. Ernie. I like you, man, but I have to say, that's one of the dumbest moves I've ever seen you make. Bert asked you to buy lemons, not oranges, to make lemonade. Unless, of course, you're planning on suggesting to Bert that the two of you sell orange juice instead of lemonade. It is in Ernie's character to be doing things like this, and Ernie will continue to be doing things like this as the story progresses, so let's continue on. Back at 123 Sesame Street, Bert is hard at work painting letters on the sign that he and Ernie will be using for a lemonade stand. When Ernie arrives home, Bert looks into the bag and discovers that Ernie has bought oranges instead of lemons. Needless to say, Bert is furious at him and asks where the lemons are. Ernie replies jokingly, saying they're at the store. With the way Bert is looking, Ernie, I would say that now is not the time to be joking around. Bert decides to get the lemons from the store and tells Ernie to finish painting the sign. If I were Bert in this moment, I would send Ernie back to the store and make him get the lemons himself. That way, it would encourage him to take responsibility for his actions and to clean up his own messes. Bert arrives at Mr. McIntosh's fruit and vegetable stand with the oranges and meets up with Mr. McIntosh as well as Susan, played by Loretta Long, and Bob, played by Bob McGrath on the TV show. He tells them what happened with Ernie, and the three of them laugh, saying something along the lines of, "Typical Ernie, can't expect him to get things right. Good thing he has Bert to clean up his messes." Bert is not amused by this, pays for the lemons, and leaves. Bert arrives back home and finds that Ernie has made a huge mess in the kitchen with the paint he was supposed to use to finish making the sign with. He is also covered in the paint. With a simple task like painting the sign, you would expect it to be a little messy, but seeing from this illustration how big of a mess Ernie made, I can't help but to wonder if Ernie made that mess on purpose just to fool around. Ernie goes to take a bath, and once again, Bert is left to do all the work, from making the lemonade to finishing the sign to make it neat. It doesn't help matters when Ernie finishes his bath and sprinkles himself with powder, making another mess on the floor. Bert sets up the lemonade stand himself, and business is ready to begin. Grover and Big Bird are the first ones to arrive and buy lemonade. They compliment Ernie on the lemonade and what a good idea the lemonade stand was. The same thing happens when Susan, Bob, Mr. McIntosh, and Gordon, played by Roscoe Orman, arrive at the stand. They compliment Ernie on the lemonade, and Mr. McIntosh proudly announces that Ernie bought the lemons at his store, when it was really Bert that did that. After Gordon tells Ernie that he did a good job on the lemonade stand, Ernie thinks that he should do this every day and call the stand Ernie's Famous Lemonade. Bert is shocked beyond words to hear this. And this, my viewers, is the straw that breaks the camel's back for Bert. This provokes an angry outburst from Bert, where he shouts the book's title, complains that Ernie has all the fun while he does all the work and gets no credit at all for any of it. Then he starts crying and runs inside 123 Sesame Street to the astonishment of everyone. They feel bad that this happened with Bert, especially Ernie. He decides to buy a gift for Bert to show him that he's really sorry for what he's done. Do you remember in one of my previous book reviews where I talk about how Ernie shows that despite his carefree, playful personality, he shows that he has a conscience and seeks to right the wrongs that he has done? Well, this moment is another example of how much of a conscience Ernie has when he saw how badly Bert felt about doing all the work and getting no acknowledgement for it from anyone. However, I'm not sure I like how slow Ernie and their friends are to realize this, and it takes Bert crying for them, especially Ernie, to really realize that something is really wrong. This time Ernie shows less of a conscience than he did in Ernie's Little Lie, I think. Moments later, Ernie comes home and finds Bert sitting in the kitchen, still crying. He apologizes and gives Bert a gift. The gift turns out to be a dustpan and a brush. Bert is overjoyed by this gift, and is even more so when he finds out that Ernie spent all the money that was made from the lemonade stand on his gift. Ernie tells him that he did all the work and deserves the gift. Bert sweeps up the powder that Ernie left on the floor earlier. Ernie offers to help him, but Bert refuses and asks Ernie to keep him company while he does this instead. The end. My final thoughts on this book. Upon reading this story, I can really clearly see how relatable this story can be in real life. It's not uncommon for people to take credit for others' hard work without a second thought, often to make themselves look great in comparison. And as a result of this, the people who do this happens to often have the same feelings that Bert experienced in the story: sad, forgotten, belittled, etc. I give credit to the author for portraying a real-life situation well in this story. As mentioned before, I don't think I really like how Ernie acted in about 3/4 of this story. At many points, Ernie seems very careless and even unaware of what goes on and what he's doing. Especially in the moment when he buys oranges instead of lemons, which I consider to be a pretty dumb mistake. And Ernie taking Bert being angry over this as nothing but a joke, judging by his reaction to it. Also at the moments at the lemonade stand, when everyone compliments him for lemonade, and Ernie knows that Bert did the work and doesn't say anything about it. Of course, Bert could have also spoken up and corrected Ernie's behavior of taking all the credit, but I think the author didn't have Bert do this in order for Bert's anger to build up inside of him until he finally lets it out. To be fair, it makes sense that Ernie and Bert's friends would assume that Ernie did all the work, as he was the one who told them all about the lemonade stand and invited them to come. I feel like this story could have benefited from a better ending. Instead of just having Ernie come to apologize to Bert and give him a gift, I think it would have been better if all their friends, including Ernie, came inside 123 Sesame Street to comfort Bert and give him the credit that he truly deserves. They could have also given Bert the gift as a joint effort and really show Bert how much they really appreciate him as well. That way, not only would this element of the story get resolved more completely, but I feel that their friends could be casted in a more positive light as well. As it is, we only see Big Bird, Grover, and everyone else feel sad when Bert has the outburst. Comment on how sad this is, including Big Bird saying that he doesn't know Bert could cry, and that's the last we ever see of them in the story. What do I think of the illustrations in this book? As per usual for the Sesame Street books that I've reviewed so far, the illustrations are gorgeous. I especially like how well drawn the human characters such as Susan, Bob, and Gordon are, and I can tell that drawing people is one of Tom Lee's biggest strengths in his artwork. That's not to say that the puppet characters such as Ernie and Bert aren't as well drawn. They're good as well, but I also really love how very expressive every one of these characters are throughout the story, especially when it's really needed in different parts of the story. The illustrations are the biggest strength of this book, I believe. Finally, would I recommend this book to others? Well, like the previous book that I reviewed, this book also falls under the recommended with reservations, which means that this story is good in some ways, but it also has too many flaws for me to fully recommend it. I would recommend it mainly for the lesson that it's trying to teach the reader, as well as for the illustrations. As mentioned before, Ernie's behavior and the ending that could be improved on are among the flaws that ruined the book for me. I spent most of the book feeling really sorry for Bert, and that did not make a good experience for me. If you can find this book, pick it up and see it for yourself what it's like. I hope you enjoyed my review of It's Not Fair. If you have any suggestions for future reviews, feel free to leave them for me in the comments below. Please comment, share my video, and subscribe to my channel as well. Have a nice day, everyone, and thank you very much for watching.